As of a few days ago, I had never seen any of the Evil Dead movies, but I saw they all got added to HBO Max because of the new one releasing. So I watched the first one, but I liked it so much that I needed to watch the others. So, as a newer fan, I'm going to be ranking all six Evil Dead movies from the original in 1981 to the newest one that came out just a couple days ago. So let's start off with number six. Yeah, so unfortunately, the newest entry to the franchise, Evil Dead Burn, is coming in at last place. You could kind of see the franchise running out of steam a little bit with Evil Dead Rise, and this one feels like kind of the final nail in the coffin, despite there being at least one more movie coming out. But for this one, people seem to be loving it a lot, even more than Rise, and I just can't understand why. I saw the trailer and thought it didn't look good, but that was before I watched the other five, so I figured it was just because I wasn't used to it yet. But nope, that was not the case. This movie just isn't good. This is by far the most derivative movie of the franchise, and that's with two of them being remakes. While I didn't think the movie was good at all, I didn't despise it. I had a good amount of fun because they kept up with the wince inducing gore, but that said, it was the worst gore effects of the franchise yet, except maybe Army of Darkness because it was more skeletons than people. The whole movie just feels poorly paced, which you notice more because it's the longest movie in the franchise by far, being 13 minutes longer than the next longest. And they never justify the length because it's just more of the same but with less interesting characters. Plus, the actual Evil Dead stuff takes like 40 minutes to kick in. I think it's interesting conceptually for there to be like an infected dog, but besides that and a couple cool shots, there's really nothing unique going on here. There's more of attacking people with pieces of a toilet seat, using a weed whacker instead of a chainsaw, and then making sure to show a chainsaw later in the movie, and just lots of stuff like that. Also, since when is there a magic dagger that stops cursed people? I hate when they do that in this franchise because what are the odds that none of the characters in the previous five movies noticed that page of the book? The movie was sitting at an okay, like 5 out of 10 for me. But then when the movie felt like it ended, they brought back the dead husband out of nowhere for no reason other than to pad out the runtime, and that really brought the whole thing down a little bit. Ultimately, like I said, it still has some of the cool stuff from the other Evil Dead movies, but without any of the sauce or the charm. Number 5. Evil Dead Rise isn't perfect, but damn, it is really good. After that great opening scene with one of the best title drops I've ever seen, it takes a little too long to get started, but once it does, it's great. Lee Cronin brings a lot of his own distinct flavor that really sets this one apart from the rest while still being unmistakably Evil Dead. One of my favorite touches he adds in this and his Mummy movie is his use of the split diopter shots. He uses them well and they look super cool here, especially. But at the same time, they do a lot of stuff that's getting tiring by now, like the use of a shotgun and a chainsaw for the fifth movie in a row now, as well as hiding around a car and the original infected watching and laughing as the next infected does all the work. I get these are all things that they need to include to make them Evil Dead, but it's just getting old seeing it for like six movies in now. But that aside, it's still gory, creepy, and mean as ever. There's definitely higher stakes in this one because you don't want the innocent little girl to die. Honestly, though, the main thing setting this one back is the end where all the possessed people can join together and form one giant, like, blob. Like I said, for the dagger in Evil Dead Burn, I just think it's dumb that somehow the people from all the previous movies just didn't notice that page in the book. The final girl is great in this one, though, and the last resolution is pretty cool. Not the best in the franchise, but overall still pretty good. Number 4. Now, this might be insane to say because this is almost everyone's unanimously favorite Evil Dead movie, but here's where I would rank Evil Dead 2. I like it for sure, but it just feels like the first movie, but slightly worse in every way. The characters, action, performances, everything is just a tiny bit worse than the original. I still find it really weird that the sequel is just the same movie again, but in a different universe. I really like Groovy and Swallow This because those campy lines make Ash feel like a real action hero. But again, it's just super derivative. It's like basically the same movie. The chainsaw arm is sick, though. Number 3. Dark fantasy is aggressively my type of thing, so of course I loved Army of Darkness. It's an insanely weird direction to go from the previous movie, but it definitely works. While the humor and campiness didn't really work for me in Evil Dead 2, it does really work here. So many great one-liners, cool fantasy aspects, great final battle. I don't know what else to say, it's just a great time. Him explaining the shotgun to the townspeople was really funny, probably the funniest scene in any of these movies. Number 2. Coming up just short of the number 1 spot, the movie that started it all, the original Evil Dead from 1981. I like this movie so much that I wanted to watch the rest of this franchise even though I wasn't planning on it. I already want to rewatch it, honestly, because I feel like I'll like it even more then. One of my favorite things is instead of fully explaining everything, they just find a book and shit starts happening. Sometimes that doesn't work, but it works wonders here because it paves the way for the most disgusting, creepy, yet still super fun horror movie.
I think this might be the only NC-17 movie I've seen because they're just rarely ever made, but this movie earns its rating. The gore is revolutionary and the special effects are great. Raimi does a really good job of incorporating stop motion into these to show the deteriorating bodies, and even though it's creepy and gross, he still does a good job of incorporating humor. This is also Ash at his best. He's just such a nice and helpful guy that you want to see him get out and save everybody. Out of all the horror classics that spawned big franchises, this is probably my favorite. Number 1. But coming in at number 1, I'm shocked to say, but it's the Evil Dead remake from 2014. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but this remake is one of my favorite horror movies ever. It's clearly a remake of the first, taking roughly the same plot and setup with the locket, shotgun, possessed hand, girl in the basement, chainsaw, and a bunch of other stuff. But then about 40 minutes in, it completely shifts and becomes an absolute descent into hell. One of the most disgustingly gory movies I've ever seen, but in a good way. I don't think I've ever winced watching a movie until this one, where I winced at least 3 times, maybe more. Especially at the scene in the basement where the girl cuts her tongue in half. Also, easily the best final girl I've ever seen in a horror movie. And the final shot of her putting a chainsaw through the chest of the demon while it rains blood with a burning house in the background might be a top 5 shot in any movie. Legitimately incredible stuff and criminally underrated. So that concludes the Evil Dead ranking. To be honest, most horror franchises that have been running for a while I'm getting pretty sick of, but I'm not sick of this one quite yet, even if the last movie wasn't the greatest. There's another one coming out in 2 years, so I'll definitely check that one out and hopefully have a review up of it when it comes out.